One of the highlights of my week is always talking to JT Cruz, not Jeff Cruz, but JT Cruz, the head man of the Jefferson Forest Cavaliers. Last year you closed it with LCA. You're going to close with them again. Well, let's review before we look ahead to that. Positive momentum going into the LCA week. I mean, a win's a win, but are you happy with a win, or do you need to play well before that?
So, looking at that Amherst County game, like it would be really, really easy to look at that and be like, oh man, we didn't play well, yada, yada, yada. But the reality of the situation is Amherst County is a very, very good football team. And if you look at, they have probably more losses than a team of their caliber should have. And I think part of that is just the nature of playing in the Seminole is that you're going to face some really, really good teams week after week. And, when two really good teams play each other, one of those teams is going to win, one of them's going to lose. That doesn't mean that the team that lost is not a good football team. And so I think Amherst, they might have came out on the wrong side of those, just a few too many times. But that doesn't negate the fact that they were a very, very, very good football team. And so were there things from that game that we had to improve on? Of course there were. But ultimately to find a way to come from behind and put some drives together on offense, find a way to get some stops on defense and win a game that comes down to the wire, I think that is a good thing for a football team to go through. There was a time in the second half, we're up 15-3, I think the score was, and then they scored on their opening drive at halftime. We got the ball back and went 3 and out, and then tried to do like a quick count, and Cadence got messed up a little bit, ended up fumbling the ball on 4th down. They get the ball back on the 25, they score again, and so I look and talk to my team, and it's like, hey, how are we going to respond when everything is going wrong for us? What are we going to do at that point? And to our guys' credit, they rose to that occasion. It would have been really, really easy to just, hang our head, we're not doing good, and just, throw in the towel on that one. And instead, they rose to it, and they found a way to win a game again against a really, really good team that was playing really, really good football at that point.
What makes them a really, really good team, talking about Amherst?
So, we had trouble with them defensively. They throw a million different formations at you, and they have a very, very electric player in their quarterback, who's done a lot of different things for them throughout the year. He's played a ton of different positions, and they settled on him at the quarterback position. And honestly, I think that's where he's most dangerous. I think one of the theories of winning high school football games, in certain offenses is snap the ball to your best player and have them touch the ball every play. And so that's what they were doing with that guy, man. He's really hard to tackle in space. And is also a very, very good passer. He threw a straight bomb. It must have been 60-yard pass. That hit their receiver in stride where, we got beat over the top. It wasn't terrible coverage. It was just a really, really good throw and a really good catch. And sometimes when a dude is out there and just playing at a really, really high level, it can be tough to stop that guy defensively. And so it was that coupled with some option stuff that they gave us. It's a lot that you have to prepare for, defensively. And again, I think they went out and played one of their best games. If you watch them on film, typically with an option style team, they're going to put the ball on the ground 1 or 2 times throughout the game, and that didn't happen for them at all. And so they played their A game against us, and again, to go up against that and be able to come out of there with a win, I think that's something that's really, really good for your team to go through, that they can go through those adverse situations and still find a way to come out on top.
So we've talked for multiple weeks now, so I feel like I know you a little bit in terms of what you're going to say. I know it's LCA week, but I have a feeling you're going to say it's not about them, it's about us. Is that hard to do when you're playing the top team in the Seminole record-wise?
It's not hard at all, because that's what it is, man. You took the words right out of my mouth. Go figure. But that's the message, honestly and truly, man. It's not about the opposing team. It's about us. It's about our preparation. It's about how we play. It's about, are we playing the style of football that we're capable of playing? Are we executing at the level that we're capable of executing? If we do that, man, everything will handle itself.
Have you talked about playoffs yet?
Yeah. You get to this point in the season, and it's only natural where you start to talk about, we're about to play our last regular season game, right? So, to not acknowledge that we are going to play a game after that would just be, disingenuous to our kids. And so, yeah, you start talking a little bit about playoffs and seeding and things of that nature. But it's one of those things where our focus is still this week and playing the best game that we can play this week. And however things shake out with playoffs, we'll worry about that next week.
Well, kind of took thunder away from my next question, but I'll pivot. LCA is good, and I think everybody's going to say the reason they're good is because they're running back, Gideon Davidson. Tell me why else they're good.
Well, obviously it starts with number 8, right? Like he's a really, really excellent player, one of the best kids that I've ever had to coach against. And so whenever you've got a kid like that carrying the ball, it's going to open up a lot of different things for them offensively. I think what makes them a really unique team is, and maybe not quite as much this year as last year, although, one, that may change when they're playing for us and they're playing for a Seminole District Championship. And two, just I think the nature of how things have gone for them this season. That kid played a lot of different roles for them. So he was a great running back. He's also a really, really good safety on defense. Maybe one of the best defensive players in the Seminole. He's also running down the field on kickoff. He's also the gunner on their punt team. And so they find different ways to utilize him to impact all 3 areas of the football game. And then taking him out of the equation, they're also really, really good up front. They're big, they're really well coached, and they're well coached across the board. Not just up front, but at every position. Like they are going to be technically sound. Coach Rocco is as sharp as they come from an offensive standpoint. He's going to find a way to create numerical advantages through different formations, different personnel groupings, all that stuff to try and kind of put you at a disadvantage on defense. And so, I was talking to Coach Burford, our defensive coordinator today, and, I got probably about 40 defensive cards, scout cards that we'll run to simulate their offense, during a team defensive session. It's like, man, I got 40 cards, and honestly, I could probably have 4 times as many. Like, I could run a different card every play of team defense all week and still maybe not hit everything that they've done over the course of the year. And that's just because they have so many different tweaks where they can move a guy here, motion a guy there, they run power, and sometimes they're motioning a receiver to kick out. Sometimes it's a fullback, sometimes it's a wing, and just different ways where they're going to try and stress you in that regard. And then the same thing on defense. Like they base out of an odd front, but they got a lot of different ways that they can play that front. They can play 4s, they can play 4 eyes, they can bump them into 3s, they can rotate their safeties. They're a very talented team, and they're a very well coached team. And when you get those 2 combinations together, you're going to get a really good football team.
I don't think it's bulletin board material to say that you think you can beat them, because if you didn't think you could beat them, we'd have to have a different discussion. With that being said, how much is it that you talked about 40 cards on defense could turn into 400? How important is it that you don't over prepare your kids, if that makes sense?
Yeah. And so whenever you face things like that, it's not necessarily we have to be prepared for every formation and every play, because any time from a defensive standpoint, you try and go into a game like that, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, because it is easier for the offense to create something new that you've never seen before. And then you don't want your kids to lose their mind. What you have to do is you create a set of rules. Hey, when the number 2 receiver, when he's in the slot, this is how you align as an outside linebacker. And that carries across all formations. When they have a nub tight end, meaning it's just a tight end, there's no receivers over there, this is how we align to that. This is how we play. Just different rules that can kind of carry themselves across all the different formations. And then it's going out there and running all of those rules against different formations. Is anything that they do going to give us any issues here? Okay, there's a slight adjustment we have to make to fix it when we get this, different things like that. And so, there's that side of it. And then it's just preaching to our kids, like, we do not have to go out there and beat them like in one play, right? It's not about going out there and being a superhero. Like, they're a good football team. They're probably going to get us once or twice, right? They might rip a long run. They might, get a stop in the backfield on defense. It's how do we respond to that? And can we go out and play the next play? Like, you don't have to go out and win every play in football. You just got to win more plays than they win, if that makes sense. And so it's approaching.
But one play can crush you too.
Sure, of course. Like, if it's a tight ball game and they rip off an 80-yard run,
right.
Yeah, that might be the difference.
So is there go ahead. I think you know where I'm going.
No. Go ahead. Give me what you got.
No, I was just going to say, with that being said, in the back of your mind, in the back of your kid's mind, and they know it too, one play, big play, small play, whatever, probably a big play though, can be the play that is a backbreaker. With that being said, I don't want to say do you coach it any differently, but hey, we can't screw up on one play because it could turn into the play. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the message, right? It's you never know what play is gonna be that big play.
Yep.
And so it's got to be full attention, full focus, 4 quarters all the way through, right? And from let's talk defense, right? Say I'm the backside corner. Well, maybe the play of the game is me pursuing my butt off to the football on a run, if I'm on the left side that's broken to the right, to make the tackle at the 10-yard line instead of letting them score, right? Maybe we make the tackle at the 10, we get a stop, we hold them to a field goal, and that ends up being the difference in the game. Like, I don't know going into that play that my pursuit is going to be the difference. Heck, I don't even know when I make the tackle on that play that that's going to be the difference. But then you go back and you look at it, and little things like that, plays throughout the course of the game start to add up to be the difference. And it can be the same thing on offense too, right? Like a backside wide receiver on a run to the left. If he's aligned to the right, is he working his butt off to get across the formation and cut off their safety or their corner from making that tackle in the 10 so that we can score? Like little things like that, effort things that may, over the course of a game, right? That backside corner, he might be doing that 15 times and it never becomes a thing until the 16th one when they actually break the run, you know? And so it's having that attention and focus to detail every time. So I don't know if it's necessarily coaching and saying like, oh man, it's every play matters. That's the case in every football game, right? You got to do your job. You got to do little things right every play, because when you don't, that's when those little things turn into big things.
I think you're pretty smart. I'm sure that you're looking and you maybe see something in LCA's armor that you can exploit. But Frank Rocco's also really smart, as you said, and he probably knows that, you know, there's something in his armor he needs to shore up. How important is it that we don't play the game of I've got to be smarter than Rocco?
I think a lot of times, and again, I keep coming back to defense because that's where it most often comes up. Offense is different in that you kind of dictate, right? Like you're calling the play, and so you're setting the table, I guess, for whatever play that's going to be on football. Whereas defense, it's more like the offense is coming out and we have to respond to that. And so there's this phrase: you never want to chase ghosts, right? Like you never want to go out there and say like, well, what if they do this and what if they that, what if they this? Like, because then we talk about 40 cards turning to 400. Well, then 400 turning to 4,000, right? Like, yeah, they could come out and they could do a whole lot of different stuff. What are the things that we have to prepare to stop? And again, with defensive football, like just by the nature of the way the game is played, you cannot defend everything. You can't stop everything, right? So like, what do you go into feeling, okay, like when they line up in this formation, we know that we're going to give them this, right? And if they get that on this play when they're aligned in this formation, like that's okay. We can live in that. We just got to make them go out there and do that every single time, right? And so it's different things like that. So I don't know if it's necessarily like we got to go out there and outsmart anybody or out-scheme anybody or anything like that. We just got to be sound in what we're doing.
On a random week, how many hours of film are you watching?
Oh man, so Huddle actually has this thing where you can go in and like look at the amount of time.
Right.
That I try and stay away from it because like I don't want to see that, because then I'm like, man, like one, my wife's gonna be mad at me. First of all, she actually knew what that true number was. However much it takes. How about that? How's that as an answer?
Well, are you watching yourself more, or are you watching the other team more?
So we film practice too, and so we'll watch practice film. So there's obviously a lot of time spent watching that. Honestly, it's probably a little bit more of the other team, just because, again, I do the cards for our defense. So like I'm watching the opposing offense to see what they're doing so that I can best simulate that for our defense. And then on the same time, I'm also watching the opposing defense to see and try and predict how they are going to, what they're going to do to try and stop us on offense. So spending a lot of time watching them, but then, I mean, there's also, we got to watch us. We got to make sure that we're not losing track of the little things on our end, and that we're coaching things up, whether it's a game or practice or whatever, that need to get fixed so that we can continue to execute at a high level. So, I mean, it's probably a pretty even split between the two, honestly.
Believe it or not, this question did have a purpose. So when you get into week 10 and you get into, I know we're not thinking about week 11 or anything yet, but just to humor me, I am. Are you watching more film when we get to week 10, week 11, week 12 than you are in week 3 or 4?
Yes, but only because there is more film available. Once you get to week 10, they've played 10 games. And we might not have all 10 of them, or they played 9 at that point. We might not have all 9 of them, but we're going to have more games than if we played somebody in week 2, right? Because at that point, I got one game and maybe 1 or 2 scrimmages that I can watch, whereas once we get to week 9, I've got a whole lot of games that I can watch. And you kind of try and watch and see, like, all right, what is specific for this team versus what is kind of the core identity of the team. right? And so the only way you figure those things out is by watching them. And then there's always like a little trick play that maybe they ran in week 6 and you haven't seen it since. So like,
Yep.
let me draw a card for that just so we can be sure that we've seen it. Or, even when you talk about a team in the Seminole like LCA or some of these other guys where you've gone against them a bunch, like I don't believe that LCA has ran a halfback toss pass yet this year, but I know they have that in their arsenal because I feel like at least once a year I've seen that on film. So like, even though I haven't seen that this year, like I know they got it. And
Right.
so again, it's one of those things we've repped it. But it's like, yeah, there's just more, right? So because there's more, I feel obligated to watch it so that I make sure I'm not missing anything.